On which fronts will we see things improving, do you think, transatlantically?
Yeah, good morning, Anna. Great to be with you. Yes, I think there is a sigh of relief here in Europe, but there is also a realization that Trumpism is going to be here for perhaps the long haul. Over the past 4 years, it's become now a movement. That's evident because President Trump did better than expected, and he did come up short. So Europeans are going to expect a more traditionalist role in U.S. foreign policy from a Biden administration, a belief in multilateralism and that the U.S. is back and dependable, albeit with restraint, because President Biden will have immense challenges back home.
Yes, and is NATO funding an area in which some of that pressure back home might exert itself, Sudha? I wonder. It seems we're likely to see President-elect Biden withdrawing President Trump's threat to remove 12,000 American troops from Germany. That seems to be an expectation that some people have, at least. But on other fronts, on the funding of NATO, is that going to remain a bone of contention between the two, do you think?
I think that is just going to be something that's expected. That was a commitment that was made during the Wales conference in 2014 for NATO. And, you know, the United States is striving toward that goal, as are other countries. And I think that President-elect Biden will expect Europeans to keep that commitment. But of course, because of the coronavirus, there will be some patience with getting to that goal because of the need for European economic recovery. But at the end of the day, look for President Biden to work with the Europeans on Iran again, to certainly sign up for the Paris Climate Accord and to be active again in the WHO. So the Europeans will see the U.S. back in a multilateral framework. But at the same time, President Biden is going to expect that the Europeans also play on the same team when it comes to China and the World Trading Order, and also with Russia in terms of having a sort of a unified stance and in terms of sanctions regime.
Yes, and some of those things that you just listed there, the Paris Accord, Iran, and they unite the UK as well. And if I could just get to the Brexit conversation here, because I think that's going to be very interesting, how that develops with President-elect Biden and President Biden in the future. There was an interesting video from a couple of years back doing the rounds over the weekend here in the UK, a BBC journalist saying to Biden, you know, do you have any words from the BBC? He said slightly flippantly and half joking, the BBC, I'm Irish. But clearly this is an underlying theme. This is something that his team has talked about in the Good Friday Agreement's importance to him.
Yeah, no, I think, again, as I mentioned, you know, Joe Biden is a traditionalist when it comes to seeing the U.S. role in the world. And I think he's going to look to Great Britain as a special partner, but, you know, having that special relationship, but not at the expense of the EU, because for Joe Biden, as when he was vice president with Barack Obama, it was clear that, you know, a strong Europe is in the interest of the United States. So also this talk about strategic autonomy is good in the sense that Europe should bolster its role in the world as well, but work in concert with the United States on all the new challenges that will have to reset the transatlantic relationship.
What about the outlook for the relationship with Russia then, Sudha? Because clearly Nord Stream and the pipeline there, Nord Stream 2, has been a contentious issue between Germany in particular and President Trump. Biden was critical of Nord Stream 2 back in 2016 when he was previously in office. What do we expect now?
I mean, that critical tone will still remain. And the interesting thing about U.S. foreign policy, you may see a return to bipartisanship when it comes to this topic. Although there is a tremendous amount of division back home, we may see Republicans and Democrats coming together on key U.S. policy positions, whether that be, you know, how do we work with China that is involved in unfair trading practices, and also a Russia that's been disruptive to our democracy, but also to our partners in Europe. And I think that with Nord Stream 2, Joe Biden and his team is going to see this as a geopolitical challenge, whereas the Germans still are hanging on to the economic lens when it comes to Nord Stream 2.
And how quickly do we see a US pivot on climate, or how thoroughly do we see a US pivot on climate, given the fact that we don't really know who's going to be in charge of the Senate just yet? So we'll have to wait for that to settle, perhaps, to see how radical a move the US could make.
So Joe Biden definitely has so much experience when it comes to Congress. He was in the Congress for decades himself. So he will rely on executive order for certain things, like perhaps returning to the Paris Agreement. But I'm sure he's going to also try to work with Congress to legislate as well. Now, a total transformation, the Green New Deal may not come to fruition as originally planned, but there will be things like, maybe having agencies reach certain climate goals, also further regulation when it comes to power plants that he'll be able to do over executive order. But I think he is also going to look to Congress to also initiate climate-friendly policies, especially because the majority of Americans now believe in climate change.